السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. The 20th juz of the Quran al-Kareem, surah is called Surah Al-Qasas. Qasas normally means an incident, like how we know Nabi Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam's story, Qasas, was mentioned as an incident for this ummah, and what lessons were given. Our Quran is a living Quran, meaning it's a living message. And as the times will go, then indications of Quran will show what you will expect in the next. For example, when I went to Turkey, not this Ramadan that passed, the previous Ramadan. So what I thought I would see in Istanbul, and what we had heard about in Tariq and history, and how Mustafa Kemal had raped that country completely. And what we understood, that we will see no Islam, we will see no Deen. And when we entered into that country, then there was a certain fever at that time that we could feel. And the present, what we had, this coup that took place, the failed coup. The failed coup was the final kick of a bull. When we were in Turkey, it was not this Ramadan, the previous Ramadan, 1 year ago. At that time there was no talk of a coup. But that feeling of a revival of Islam was so much in the air, that as I walked around certain of the museums and areas, so one verse of Quran went to my mind, and then you can understand what a living Quran we got. In the 3rd juz of the Quran al-Kareem, Allah Tabarak Ta'ala speaks about the era when Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam's Masjid al-Aqsa was destroyed by the great king of that time, whose name was Nasr. And he was sent from a land very far away. And Shaitani forces sent him. He was made a great king, but he had to do their work. So he came with a mighty army from the lands of Babylon, Iraq. They landed in Sham. Quran speaks about it, that they entered into those houses and they razed it to the ground. Historians write that when he left the lands of Sham, he left not a single copy of the Torah. Everything was burnt, to ensure that in this region, religion will never come alive again. Whatever scholar was found, and they were in the thousands, they say he was either slaughtered or he was taken as a prisoner back to the lands of Iraq. As Nasr left, and it was a scene of destruction and of rape and of... Allah Tabarak Ta'ala says, O kalladhi marra ala qarya, that remember the time when that man passed that city. وَهِيَ خَاوِيَةٌ عَلَىٰ عُرُوشِهَا, it was flat to the ground. And he was giving a living message to us. Because exactly as that Nabi passed the lands of Sham, which was the center of the greatest masjid after the Kaaba, Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam established this with the work of the jinn. A masjid that size and that beauty had never been seen in the world. But now it was flat. And there was not a single person reading the Torah. So as that Nabi passed, then he said, Anna yuhyi hadhihi Allah ba'da mawtiha. That how will Allah ever bring life to this land after it's dead? Exactly like that, in the year 1923, the state of Turkey was established. The Khilafat fell. Before that it was a mighty land, the land of Istanbul. It was called Islambul. There was no Istanbul. Islam is Islam. Bul means city. It was called the city of Islam. It was the Khilafat for the entire Muslim world. It had boasted to the world the greatest of fuqaha. The fuqaha of the world would come to the lands of Istanbul. It created such ulama that the caliber of them was such. The other day we spoke about one Sheikh Ali Haider. Many of the people who had the chance to meet or to have heard about Sheikh Mahmud Afandi. Sheikh Mahmud Afandi's Sheikh was Sheikh Ali Haider. He was in the time where the Khilafat was on its last days. So the Khalifa at that time was Sultan Abdul Hamid. Sheikh Ali Haider, at a young age of about 25 or 26, he had already become such a great alim of his time that they had brought him into the Khilafat or into the Sultan circle. His job in the month of Ramadan was to sit on a chair. One Qari would read 10 verses of Quran. You can choose whichever 10 verses you want. And Sheikh Ali Haider then would start making a tafsir of those 10 verses in front of the selected ulama of the entire lands. Thereafter the ulama would question him and the entire majma would be seen. You can understand what knowledge that man must have. And he himself later on would explain his knowledge. When in the era of Mustafa Kamal they started burning books. So one day Sheikh Ali Haider in Josh, he said that the people think that they can destroy Islam by burning the books. He said, Wallah, even if they burn every single book of Islamic literature, he said, I myself will write out the books of the 4 madhahib. It was no small claim of his. At that time, Istanbul had those scholars. But then they saw the whole thing falling. And the state of Turkey was established. And where it was ulama and ulama and ulama in every town, suddenly now it was hypocrite and hypocrite and hypocrite in every town. When Mustafa Kamal came to seat, they said there were 70,000 masajid that was under his gaze. He had already reached the number 70,000. On that day that he took power, the law was passed, not a single masjid will now be built after. For which reason they say the number is still sitting on 70,000 until now. From that time, 100 years. The second law was, in a few days, 70,000 scholars were removed as imams of the masajid. And Mustafa Kamal supplied those masajid with 70,000 of his own. When we read that, we wondered, where did he find 70,000 scholars? So someone wrote 100 years before the coming of Mustafa Kamal, there was an entire shaitani movement undergrounds in Turkey, in the lands of the Khilafat. Hypocrites were being prepared underground. There were scholars of the best tongues. And they were being made ready that when the time comes, you will take over the entire Muslim world. You will take over Turkey's every single masjid. And from the mimbar where the truth of Islam was once said, you will now say everything which is batil. And when 70,000 hypocrites took over Turkey, at that time the world would have thought that Islam will now never arise again in this land. Because who's going to fight the scholars now? When all the scholars are hypocrites. And the military is hypocrite. The government is hypocrite. You are finding that you don't know who's your friend, you don't know who's your enemy. We spoke a little bit in Maritzburg about Sheikh Ali Haider. We will just repeat a little to understand when Allah Ta'ala wants something to happen. The Sheikh Ali Haider in the last days of Sultan Abdul Hamid's reign, when Allah Ta'ala wants a man to create revolution, then 2 things are found in him. One is he's taken to the limits of knowledge, ilm. And on the other side, he's taken to the limits of tazkiyah. His spiritual reformation is done. Sheikh Ali Haider was a master of knowledge. But with regards to tasawwuf and tazkiyah, he kept a very far distance. And for many reasons, one is majority of the khanqahs were doing a lot of wrong things. He reaches a certain area. The people are very, very impressed that the great mufti of the land of Istanbul has come to our land. And in the bayan that he gives, he mentions a certain Sheikh Ali Bazzaz. And he takes his name in his bayan. And he says certain words of criticism which was not correct because there was a man of sunnah. So the murids of Sheikh Ali Bazzaz go and tell that Sheikh that this great mufti came but he's talking such things from the mimbar. Sheikh Ali Bazzaz says that how Allah Ta'ala melted for Nabi Dawood alayhi salam iron. Allah is going to melt this man for us also. But this man was going to be chosen now, Sheikh Ali Haider. That night he can't sleep. He tries to write, he can't write. He wants to read, he can't read. He understands that yesterday I must have said something about a very great man of Islam. So the next day he goes searching, who is Sheikh Ali Bazzaz? And when he finds him, then it's a unique meeting, but the meeting ends on this year that Sheikh Ali Bazzaz says that you will never get anything from me most likely. You go to another town. There's one man, you go and meet him. When he comes to that town, it's the first time the Grand Mufti of the land of Istanbul, who is honored by the Sultan, he is now walking. He's going alone. He comes to the house. After a long wait, the person meets him. But it's no big istiqbal that the great Sultan's Mufti has come. He said, you have to meet another man. He stays in one alley. Sheikh Ali Haider himself writes, he says, when I knocked on that door, and one young girl opened, asked, who you? And I say, she doesn't even know who I am. I thought the whole world knew me. And she says, okay, you can enter. He says, after she left, he said, my father or my grandfather will come just now. And she went to it. He said, after 1 hour of waiting, his nafs starts saying to him that where you landed, the great alim of this land, and you're sitting here. And then he says, one old man walks in, hunched. And I go up to meet him, I put my hand, he says, dirty hands, don't touch me. He says, never in his life he had heard that. So he pulls back, he asks the man, what? That I am not dirty. So then the man asks, what you want? So he explains, he introduces himself that I am the alim. So he said, you alim? You have so much of pride to calling yourself alim. So then he read a verse of Quran which means that Allah Ta'ala himself said that هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ, that the alim and a non-alim are not the same. So he said, if I'm an alim, there's nothing wrong. So as he read that verse, that man said, oh, you read Quran? Tawbah. So he became upset now. And he said to the man that, what's wrong with reading Quran? Am I in halat of janabat? Do I need to take a ghusl that I can't read Quran? So that man said, if you needed a ghusl, I would have sent you to my bathroom. And in 5 minutes you would have become pure. He said, but you such a filthy character that the waters of the 7 oceans will never clean you. He said, when that man said that to him, he fell to his knees. And he just started crying. He says he doesn't know what condition overtook him. And just crying. And then that man started laughing. He said, hey, I'm just joking, stand up. He said, you must go back to that first man again. He says, that's the beginning. When he reached finally, Allah Ta'ala gave him so much from the Sheikh Ali Bazzaz, that when that Sheikh passed away, at that time Ali Haider was seeing the entire fall of Islam in the lands of Istanbul. He had taken a lot from his Sheikh. In his bayan, he tried to correct what Mustafa Kamal was doing in the entire military. One word of his went wrong. The military was on every alim's throat. Around him, ulama were being taken out at night. They would never come back. Whoever dared to speak the truth was gone. Sheikh Ali Haider writes that he was taken to prison. He, his friend, 3 of them or 4. And they know like how thousands have been executed already. We are also going to be. The judges were bought over. When you come in, whatever the verdict is, you are guilty. So that night they know that tomorrow we are going to be killed. And they were told you must write your confessions and your pleas to the government and to explain why you are wrong. And then perhaps you might get a pardon from the government. So everyone is busy writing. He said he wrote about 11 pages. His friend had written 13 pages. Then he sleeps. His friend slept. When they wake up the first, he says, my friend said to me, I had a dream. In the dream I took 2 papers and I presented it at a counter. After giving it, I was given a gold coin, but it was like broken in half. So I looked at the coin and I started telling the person, can't you give me a better coin? In the dream, that man who took the coin was irritated. But for some reason, he just took out a full coin and gave it to him and said, go. So the man asked Sheikh Ali Haider, what do you think the dream means? He said, if the dream is true, then it means tomorrow you will go and you will speak on your behalf and my behalf. I won't have to do anything. And you will come to the judge who will want to pass the verdict of death. He'll already have it ready. He won't be interested in your plea at all. But divine decree will take over. And the judge, instead of saying you must be killed, he will find that you must be freed. He will not understand why also. Because Allah Ta'ala wants it to happen. So then the person says, now what are you doing? I see you scratching on this bed of yours. He says, I had a dream where my Sheikh Ali Bazzar said to me, that there's a lot of work for you to be done in this land. So, Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina. Read the entire surah 33 times. And tomorrow you are going free in the world. So then he said this, then he looked at his third friend. They said that one, if he was found guilty the next day, he could have only given him 3 years of detention. The third, because he had never said anything. He was just in the wrong group. So he says to his friend that you also read Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina 33 times. And what you have already written, this whole bunch, don't worry about it. So he says, my friend in front of me, that bunch of papers he had, he squashed it last. And then he said, you saw your sheikh in a dream. And I saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in my dream. And he in my dream said to me that don't waste your time writing out letters. Tomorrow I want you to have supper with me. So he said, I'm going tomorrow. So Sheikh Ali Haider says, I told him there's no way you can pass away. Because they can't pass the death sentence on you. If they pass it, then pass it on me. He says, my friend said that I already accepted the dawah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You people who got a lot to work here, I am going tomorrow. And exactly like that, he said, the thing happened. The next day, the two people who the whole world thought would be killed went out free. For the next 25 years, Sheikh Ali Haider, however, he had the government around him everywhere. Whenever he wanted to talk, he knew someone is listening, waiting for one word. So at that time, he was wondering that how will Allah Ta'ala ever bring this land of Istanbul alive again? Exactly how the Nabi said, Anna yuhyi hadhihi Allah ba'da mawtiha. That after this land is dead, how will Allah ever give life again? So at the beginning, Allah Ta'ala said, فَأَمَاتَهُ اللَّهُ مِئَةَ عَامٍ. When that Nabi asked that question, day and day Almighty Allah said to the Nabi, die. And the Nabi fell down. Some Mufassirin have written it was perhaps Uzair alayhi salam. After 100 years that Nabi is told stand. But the Mufassirin writes that about 70 years after the falling of that Nabi on that spot, Allah Ta'ala started a revolution in the land of Sham. And the people just started feeling a magnet pulling them back. And the Torah was rewritten. And when the Nabi stood up after 100 years and he looked around, then he's thinking that just the other day when I walked past, it was empty. And there was not a single scholar. And now there's a whole masjid. And now everyone is reading. And everyone is moving. And now there's burqa and there's kurta and everything. But what that verse explains, Miyata Am, 100 years. When I went to Turkey 1.5 years ago, at that time this verse came to my mind. 1923 was the day the Republic of Turkey was announced in the world. No Khilafat. And no Khilafat meant no Islam. The land of Istanbul has now banned Quran. It banned Adhan. It banned the kurta. It banned the burqa. The burqa was taken out to such an extent. In the time of Ali Haider, he saw that they would have ceremonies. Television was used openly to mock at Islam. Whoever dared have a beard he would lose his job immediately. If the wife was found with a scarf, the husband would lose the job. If a woman walked out with a scarf, young children would run and they would say, ogre, meaning monster. And the older men would walk past her and say, you prostitute. And that woman would feel shy. Then they would have these public gatherings, where they would get about 100 women coming with the burqa. And then they would walk past, and it would be called the gatherings of freedom. And it was put on international television. And as they would walk past that woman in burqa, then she would come by a man, he would put his hands on her, and he would say, my sister, I set you free from the clutches of religion. And he would lift up her burqa, and under it she would have practically nothing on. And then everyone would start clapping, and then she would go like this, I'm free. She would walk, and then the next woman would come. The burqa was discarded, Quran was banned. At that time, whoever wanted to learn Quran, they said he was learning in the barn at night, or he was learning in the graveyard and he had two friends standing at the entrance, in case the military finds you. Or the ustad would say to the student, I'll meet you in the train. The ustad would get in the cab, in the compartment, the student would get in. In the compartment going from point A to B, the ustad would give a sabak to the students. They would reach point B, they would get out as though we don't know each other. And tomorrow I'll get second sabak. The next day again the student will read his sabak quickly, the ustad will give new sabak. We don't even know each other when we go on. In such an hard environment, Sheikh Ali Haider is wondering how will Islam ever come alive in this land. Everything was against Islam. Mustafa Kamal had done such things with an entire shaitani group that when you look in 20 years, an entire generation forgot. They say in the era of Sheikh Ali Haider, in the beginning era, he saw the time where everyone around him was asking the highest of ilmi questions. This tafsir, that scholar says this, he says that. And at the end of his life, he saw that level of Islam, that the local people could not even read La ilaha illallah. It went through such a change, and his heart was burning. How will Allah ever make it happen? 1923, that Republic of Turkey. Right in the year 1929, the Sheikh Mahmud Effendi was born. And amazed, the verse of Quran says, يُرِيدُونَ لِيُطْفِئُوا نُورَ اللَّهِ بِأَفْوَاهِهِمْ. That the whole world, their desire is to blow out the light of Islam. To understand this verse of Quran, it's like you take one candle. When a boy is getting his birthday, this is something we don't agree with, we don't accept also, but people do it. So he's 10 years old, he got 10 candles. 10 candles, you'll tell the one boy who's 10 years old, you must blow all 10 out. And he'll go, and everything's gone. And if he can't, everyone will laugh, you can't blow out the candle. Yeah, Allah Ta'ala said Islam is one candle. And the whole world will unite to blow out that one flame on one candle. And together they all blow. And that one candle denies the entire world. Wallahu mutimmu nurihi. Allah Ta'ala said, I'll make that flame continue burning, even though they continue blowing and blowing and blowing. One flame, the land of Turkey saw it. One individual was made to stand. One individual was going to show the entire land of Turkey that one man will destroy your armies, will destroy the military intelligence, will destroy your media, will destroy your newspapers, will destroy your universities, will destroy your schools. Whatever effort is being made by millions of your shaitani agents, one man who's connected with Allah Ta'ala will break all of that. Mahmud Effendi was born in 1929, 6 years after the Republic of Turkey. At a time when there was no hope for anyone left. In the dream his mother sees that the moon has fell in her lap. After the moon fell, the entire land of Turkey is filled with light. She says to her husband, I think I'm going to get a child. They already had about 4 miscarriages. The husband was a muezzin. After every adhan he was making dua, oh Allah, give me a child. But he never knew what a child was going to be born. When this Mahmud became of the age of 20, he was already an alim. He had learned Quran and what a voice he had. But he also was wondering that where in this land Allah will ever bring. In the military, he used to give bayan to the soldiers. To explain to them that, fighting is a very good thing. But Islam is even more important. But everything was against everything. Sheikh Ali Haider passed away at that time, where he had hope in that president who was, in the year 1960, the president was moving slightly towards Islam. So the president removed a law which had banned the adhan being given in the Arabic language. The military's thanks to the president was, the next year the president was found guilty of treason. President, Prime Minister and an entire cabinet was hanged. And the military gave a message that let whichever president comes in the seat, remember that the military of Turkey will never allow this land to forget the legacy of Mustafa Kemal. No matter who comes here, you will never change what he brought. We will remove you as the president also. So Ali Haider saw that also, that the president was killed. And how sad he became at that time. Near the end of Ali Haider's life, Mahmud Afandi lands up in a certain area on his military expeditions. He comes to the grave, he asks the people, whose grave is this? He says, this is the grave of a great sheikh of the past, Ali Bazzaz. He stands by the grave and he asks, does this man have any living Khalifa? They say, far away in the land of Istanbul, there's a man called Ali Haider. So he says, but where will I get a chance to ever meet Ali Haider? When I'm here and he's on that end of the world. He said, that night, Sheikh Ali Haider in Istanbul has a dream. Sheikh Ali Bazzaz, his Sheikh, is saying to him, that where my grave is situated in that town, there is a young boy who's the amanat of this entire land. I want you to come and find him. And they say that entire entourage lands. When Sheikh Ali Haider comes, he sends his murids, go and look for a young boy who's unique. They say, what's his name? He say, I don't know his name. I just know he's unique. They say, what a description. How do you find someone unique? But he says, look. It must be months of looking. And then one day he's giving a bayan in the masjid, Ali Haider, and Sheikh Mahmud enters. And when Sheikh Mahmud looks at him, he had seen the Sheikh in his dream. So when he looks, he asks the people, who is this? And after, when he gets the chance to enter into the room of the Sheikh, right, as soon as he entered, Sheikh Ali Haider stands up and he tells his murids, move aside. He says, for so many months I am waiting for this boy. The man who will take all my knowledge has now come. Bring him to me. Allah Tabarakalla, when He wants to do, one candle was going to be made to burn for that land. Sheikh Ali Haider would then say to his son after that you must be thinking I'm giving too much of time for this boy Mahmud. He says, I have so much of love for him, but I cannot explain to you why. If Allah had to give me 100 sons, and I was told to sacrifice all of them if I wanted to keep this Mahmud, he said, I'll sacrifice them all. He said, this boy is going to take that from me and spread it everywhere. But I cannot explain to you what's going to happen. 1960 he passed away. And then this Mahmud became known as Mahmud Afandi after that. His murid writes, Sheikh Mahmud Afandi's murid, he says, you want to see the miracles of the world. He says, understand in the world, year 1960, that President and Prime Minister's entire cabinet, they were hung. The military has said we will not allow anyone to move 1 centimeter from Mustafa Kamal. He said in such an era, when the masajid were being made into barnyards, and when the kurta and the burqa was being mocked openly, and when scholars were being taken out of their houses at night and never returning, and at a time when no one was even calling towards the hifz of Quran, it was too scary. He says, in that era, this one Mahmud, over a 50-year period, starts traveling the length and breadth of Turkey, sleeping 3 hours at night, visiting town after town, watching his every sentence, knowing if he says one word too loud, he will be killed tomorrow by the military. Every town he's going, the people want to give him a hadiyah. He says, the only hadiyah I want is 2 madrasas. One for the girls, only taught by girls, not a single boy. Not a ustad to teach, it will be a girl teaching a girl. And 1 madrasa for boys. The people would say to him, we don't have the funds for a madrasa. He said, if before I leave, you establish a madrasa the size of a chicken coop, where people keep the chickens, I will accept that hadiyah also from your town. Every town he went, he opened 2 madrasas, so small, that the people would mock at him and say, what is this ever going to do? In the beginning he would make a person an alim in 1 year. This everyone won't understand, but those who went through a madrasa course, in his syllabus to become an alim in Turkey, you will study by me the book called Nurul Idah. After that boy studied Nurul Idah. Nurul Idah is taught in our madrasa in the 1st year. It's the beginning kitab. Turkey was at such a low level that Nurul Idah in the syllabus of Mahmud Afandi was the final kitab. You study by me Nurul Idah, you the alim. People would object, how can you call him an alim? He would say, you don't understand that in this land, this is more than sufficient for the land. He's an alim. He says, now you teach your wife this kitab. And as soon as she would learn it, she was alima. And then he would say to alima, your job is to open a madrasa and teach only this kitab. And alima was now making alimat. Next year when he would come, there would be so many alims, but they only knew Nurul Idah. From Nurul Idah, he would select a group of his alims. And he would tell them that you're very great alims, but one more kitab I want you all to do. You all must be specialists. And he would put them one up. And then the specialists from them he would choose. And he would say one more kitab, and he would put them up. And like this year, he brought that land up. His murid writes, in an era of 50 years, with the media against him, the military against him, the schools and universities against him, every individual who was called educated against him, he made such an effort, and he showed when Allah wants something to happen. In the year 2005, he asked permission from the government to go for Umrah. His murids wanted to accompany him. In a land where the beard now was regarded as completely permissible to remove, the Sheikh made such an effort in such a land. Every murid of his who made that trip with him for Umrah would have a full Shari'i beard, would have a turban, would have his kurta above the ankle, and his wife would be in the full burqa. The government asked, how many want to come with you? The number they got was too huge. They said, we will only give permission for 50,000. When 50,000 reached the Mataf in the year 2005, an Arab asked this person where he is coming from. He said, from the land of Istanbul. He said, you have people like this in Istanbul. At that time the murid said, this is only who was allowed to come. If you have to come to Istanbul, you will find meadows and meadows and meadows of such people. So he said, understand when Allah wants a flame to burn, one man's efforts, and it denied every power around. And that was then. In the year 2011, he made another journey with 50,000, then he became much more famous. Thereafter, he was given an award, the Qasim Nanotwi Award, and the world started learning of this great Sheikh of Islam. But it was not only one miracle. Allah Ta'ala explains that this Islam will live with one individual being made to stand up. The surah I wanted to explain was Surah Al-Qasas, where Allah Ta'ala explains how it will happen. So 100 years, 1923, Republic of Turkey. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Allah at the end of every 100 years will continue making such individuals stand up for this deen that will change the entire story. We are reaching that 100-year time now. The Khilafat went down. How down it went. And no one ever thought it will come up. About 3 months before that failed coup, we were fortunate to meet one of the ministers of the Erdogan government, who was also an alim, and the way he spoke of Iman. And one thing he explained to us, he said that we are living in such a time that he says we in the government of Erdogan, who are mukhlis, sincere, perhaps we are 10%. And 90% of the people around us in the government, he says when the Erdogan government came into power, he says in the politics of Turkey, the law is if you studied in a madrasa, you can never enter into politics. So when they were small, if you wanted to become an alim, then you are in ilm only, you don't go to school. And if you want to become a politician, then you don't study anything of ilm. Otherwise, politics will never allow you. He says, when they were in the maktab, their sheikh said to them, I want you all to learn politics. So he says, we told the sheikh that in a land where a little ilm will bar you from ever becoming a politician, why must we ever study? And he says, our sheikh said to us that who knows what the future holds? I want you all to learn politics. He says when the Erdogan party came to power, and Erdogan started looking for people to fill the posts, and he said when we were given the opportunity, he said, hey, Allahu Akbar went out of our mouths. That what our Shaykh said that time, Allah made it true. The whole thing changed. He says, but the numbers that were there to fill those posts were too little. So Erdogan had to look for other help. He says the biggest that he trusted was the group called Gulen. Because they had grown up together. The Gulen movement had always been the voice of Islam. He says, so he put those people in every part of the departments. And we worked under them because we were not qualified. He says, while we were working under them, we used to pick up that there is something wrong with these people. That their talk is the talk of Islam. But their inside is not showing it. And the time came, it wasn't now, it was about already 3 years ago, where Erdogan finally, at that time when he met us, he told us, he says, you know what and what things are happening in Turkey, Istanbul? He said, perhaps you don't know this even happened. But Erdogan had to go for an operation. So such a plan was made that the interior, what you call the minister of a certain group part, he was going to be arrested by the government, the military. And they were going to make him make a statement to show that Erdogan had told him to do this. It had to do something with the Kurds. And by the time the operation was done, and Erdogan came back to his senses, he was going to be arrested. And within 2 or 3 weeks he would have been hung most likely because it was called treason to the government. He said they had planned it so well that this man will be arrested, this will be the statement he will make, this will be the arrest taking place. He says it just happened that Erdogan, as he got in his car, and the appointment at the hospital was a certain time, he said to the driver, there's a certain alim in this town, I want to go ask for du'as. So he says, the driver said that we can't go and ask for du'as, your appointments. He said, the appointments can wait, let's go get du'as. Because of that one turn, he reached late. He says, the man who was in charge of that ministry suddenly realized that police cars are coming outside. And they have come to arrest him. He asked, on what charges? They said, no, we want you to make a statement, come. So the man is thinking that I want to phone the president, but he knows the president is already in theatre, under anesthetic. He says, he makes a call, and the person says to him, no, we got late. The president was supposed to have been under anesthetic long time. He went for someone's du'as. He sat there so long having tea. He said, I need to speak to him immediately. And in the hospital, Erdogan says, what? And he says, you just stay where you are, don't go out. And then that car which was used to take him to the hospital, which was called state car, he says to his people, you take it immediately there. And you'll go right, because it's a state car, the police cannot interfere. And you arrest that man. And that man is arrested by the president. And in that car he is taken to headquarters. And he says, headquarters is given the order that if anyone comes near headquarters, even if it's the vice president, they must be shot down. It was the one group he could trust. He said, and then he went for the operation. He says, you will not understand what I'm telling you. But when it came out, after Erdogan came out and we realized what a plan, we all said it was 5 minutes. Had that delay not been there would have been no Erdogan left. He says, when we came out, we realized that there's so many hypocrites around us. So that man then is saying to us in that meeting, he's saying that we want to now cleanse the government of the hypocrites. But there are so many hypocrites in our government that when we ask where the money for the Gulen movement is coming, even the banks refuse to show the government. He said the banks are with him, the military is with him, the news is with him, everyone is with him. He said, we're fighting a losing war. And Allah Ta'ala made it 3 months later when the scoop happened. And what a plan it was. And the enemy never ever dreamed it will fail. But what made it fail? So I will explain that when Allah Ta'ala now says it must happen, then the whole world's intention goes haywire. When Nabi Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was born, this is called Suratul Qasas. And the surah was revealed at such a time. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was being kicked out of Makkah Mukarramah. Kicked out means they had pushed him out, but they wanted to now assassinate him. And he looks at the Kaaba, and then he says, oh Kaaba, on the surface of the earth, there is no place that is so beloved to me. He says, had my people not forced me out of this land, I would never have gone. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu are moving. And as he's going, he's looking at the Kaaba. And looking at the Kaaba, it is that to me and you, where are we going to go? To a foreign land, where Islam is supposed to spread in the world from Makkah Mukarramah, but Makkah has kicked me out. So as he looks, they say Jibreel alayhi salam comes down with the surah. And he says, Allah has instructed me to recite to you Suratul Qasas. And what a surah it is. And at the end of the surah, it ends with that verse which many people, when they go for Umrah and Hajj, and they don't know whether I'll ever come back to the land, and that one verse they write on the pillars. That verse is, Inna alladhi farada alayka al-Quran. In the surah first, Allah Ta'ala describes that don't look at Makkah now. And Ummah was being told, don't look at Istanbul at the time when you were looking at it. And don't look at the world how it is today. And the news is against you, media is against you, military is against you, schools are against you. He says when Musa alayhi salam was born, at that time if he was told that you have been created to wipe out the entire army of Fir'aun, then one Musa would have said, me one, where's my army? But one man, was the decision of Almighty Allah. Musa alayhi salam's qissa is known. So after mentioning the whole qissa, that verse came down, إِنَّ الَّذِي فَرَضَ عَلَيْكَ الْقُرْآنِ, that Allah who sent the Quran to you, لَرَادُكَ إِلَى مَعَادٍ, He is going to return you to that promised place again. For Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the promised place was Makkah Mukarramah, that in 10 years time, you will come as the conqueror of Arabia back in this land. That promise was for me and you also. That Allah who sent this Quran, He will return Islam back to its promised place. Istanbul was told, you will become again Istanbul. The Khilafat was told, you will again stand up as the Khilafat. And the Muslim world was told that the time again will come where Islam will be the dominant force in the entire world. But then the person will ask, but how? So Allah Tabarak Ta'ala said, نَتْلُو عَلَيْكَ مِن نَبَإِ Musa. I will explain to you the incident of Musa and Fir'aun. لِقَوْمِ يُؤْمِنُونَ. But it needs you to have Iman. You can't say this happened in the past, it won't happen again. How Turkey saw it happening. The coup, everything was planned to the detail. There was not a chance of it failing. Because of which they say the hypocrites did not hide the names of any of their members. We know after Erdogan took over again and the coup failed, within 2-3 weeks they had managed to remove so many from the military. And you wonder, how did they know he's involved and he's involved and he's involved? What that man had told us about 3 months ago, impossible for us to find the hypocrites of this land. Because of the failed coup, those names came in front of them like paper. Every name was there. It was given up. They never thought it will fail. It couldn't fail. But it was one irada of Allah that said no. The whole thing went haywire. Musa alayhi salam is born. Allah Tabarak said, Inna Fir'aun ala fil ard. That when you're thinking of the mighty power of America and Britain and Russia, the word ala is from a'la, high. He says Fir'aun was very high in the earth. His military, his intelligence, his might was all over. وَجَعَلَ أَهْلَهَا شِيَعًا. And then the groups were all groups. Like how you have the Kurds, they one group. And then you have the Arabs as a group, and you have the Turks as a group. And everyone is fighting each other, so where you'll ever get unity? He says in the time of Fir'aun there were groups also. Each group despised the other group. So there was no chance of them ever uniting against Fir'aun. يُذَبِّحُ أَبْنَاءَهُمْ وَيَسْتَحْيِي نِسَاءَهُمْ. The era of Fir'aun was that the boys were being murdered and the women were being left alive. And you go in Syria today and you will see the same. Women are everywhere in those shelters. Where's your husband? Died. Where's your son? Died. Where's your nephew? Died. Who's going to look after you? They said there's 25, 50 women, not a single man to look after us. The women are being left as a burden to the world. And the men are being killed. Fir'aun was doing it. إِنَّهُ كَانَ مِنَ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. Allah Tabarak said open corruption was taking place. Today's facade is the dropping of those bombs. وَنُرِيدُ. And this is that verse. And how Allah Tabarak used that word. You know the Arabic language will be aradna. Aradna we intended. Allah Tabarak used the present. وَنُرِيد. We intend. One intention of ours and the whole story changes. Allah Tabarak says, وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ. Our intention is that we will now favor those that the world thought will never stand up again. The army was there, the military was there. Fir'aun had already been told that a boy will be born. So he said, kill all the boys, so the boy can't be born. Then the person said, you don't have to kill them every year, I'll tell you which year he's born. It will not be the odd year, it will be the even year. So in the odd year, let boys be born. In the even year, watch out. So boys are being slaughtered in the even years. And any woman who's pregnant, they spies all over to find out. The military will be informed, this woman is pregnant. Musa alayhi salam's mother conceives. She doesn't know what made her conceive. No one was trying to get children because who wants to see the child killed? But the irada was there. The mother couldn't stop it happening. The boy is there in the womb. Now the mother is worried. If one woman gets the news, so much of money is being offered. She has to now find a woman who will be there to deliver, nursemaid. She looks at a certain friend of hers who says, I think this woman I can trust. So she says to her, you know what, I have a problem. Please do not tell anyone. But within a few days, I will have to give birth. The woman says, you have been friends for life. You think I will ever give your secret away? But it was such a time that the woman also knew if she doesn't give the secret, she'll be killed. So even before coming that night, she already sends the message. The military is around. Musa alayhi salam's mother, trusting that one woman. Mufassirin write, Musa alayhi salam is born. That woman's eye falls on the forehead of Musa alayhi salam. A shine hits her so hard from that forehead that she says to the mother, I don't know what this boy is, but I'm in love with him. I have betrayed you. Outside the military is waiting. And she starts trembling, and she puts the child in the mother's hands and says, I have to go. As she walks out, the military is already waiting. She's gone. Musa alayhi salam's mother starts shivering. Who can ever fight the entire military of the world but one irada of Allah? The military walk in. Musa alayhi salam, Mufassirin write, the mother is confused, so she takes the child and puts it in the daughter's hands. But normally, how can a daughter look after? If you can't look after mother, where I'll look after? And the daughter doesn't understand that Jibreel alayhi salam takes it from her hands and puts Musa alayhi salam into the oven. When Ibrahim alayhi salam burnt in a fire and it never burnt, Mufassirin wrote, Musa alayhi salam also went into the oven. And then the military walk in. And the mother wants to talk, she can't talk, because one irada of Allah, that the whole world's military, but when the decision is made, everything goes upside down. They say to her, where's the child? He said, which child? She said, that woman walked out, she says, my friends. He said, you lying to us, where's the child? They start searching. They look at every place in that house. But because of one irada of Allah, the one place they don't open is the oven. And as they leave, and they're also confused, and the mother is confused, and the daughter is confused. And after they go, she comes to a sentence and asks, where's my son? And the daughter asks, where's my brother? And then from the oven they hear a cry saying, ah! And they open up the oven and Musa alayhi salam is there. One irada of Allah, that the world's military can do nothing when I say do. Everything haywire. Allah Tabarak Ta'ala says, وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمِّ مُوسَىٰ أَنْ أَرْضِعِيهِ. Then we gave wahi to the mother of Musa alayhi salam that breastfeed him. And have iman that the world cannot do anything to this boy. You just breastfeed him. But as she's breastfeeding, every day she got the worry. That one woman will find out, she's going to tell the military there's a child here. فَإِذَا خِفْتِ عَلَيْهِ. So Allah Tabarak Ta'ala says, no problem. When you no longer can breastfeed that child because you're too scared, then as we took him one time away and we looked after him, hand him over to us again. فَإِذَا خِفْتِ عَلَيْهِ فَأَلْقِيهِ فِي الْيَمِّ. Throw him into the waters. And have no fear because our irada is that deen must come alive. When the irada comes, one individual will stand up and he will change the entire world. Nothing will harm him. And that's happening today. That military coup that failed was because that irada was there. When that irada hit, the army bombed that hotel where Erdogan was supposed to be staying, but it just happened it was the wrong hotel. It wasn't that the army's intelligence was wrong, it was one irada of Allah fell and they hit the wrong hotel. Erdogan was supposed to spend a few minutes extra. Something came in his mind, he went out few minutes earlier. One irada of Allah, you can't be here. But even that was not sufficient. Every channel closed themselves so that the president cannot speak to the localities. But Allah's one irada took place. And the very media that they made to corrupt the world, Allah used that media to spread His message also. Erdogan's one speech goes out live. And he says to the population, go out in the streets, but even he never thought what will happen after. One irada of Allah made certain individuals go in front of army tanks. The next morning if you ask that man, what made you go? He said, I also don't know what made me go. One decision of Allah put people in front of the army tanks. Put people standing in front of guns. The military was told, we saw those messages, where filthy individuals said, kill whoever you want to kill. Shoot openly. But that army soldier wants to shoot, one irada of Allah falls on him. He says, I can't shoot. Put his gun down, he said, I'll be arrested. The army stopped. Guns were put down. People jumped on tanks, they pulled those people out. The next day, if you ask them, how you all managed? Was it a prepared thing? Everyone, when Erdogan gave that speech 1 week later, he cried. And he said, when you people went out on the streets, he also could not understand what they did. And they would never understand. When Uridu, when Allah Tabarakala makes one irada, the whole world will change. I used to always wonder when Hazrat Mehdi will just stand, how it will happen. But on that morning the world saw it. There was only one country, one irada, and it stood, the whole country made the world freeze. When that call of Al-Mahdi will be made, you can understand how it will happen. Every military will fall. Every government will come down. All differences, 1 second will be forgotten. The ummah will just stand. One irada. Musa alayhi salam's mother goes to a friend. She says to the friend, I want you to make me a box. But there must be a hole in the box for air. It must have a cushion at the bottom. The person says, what do you want a box for? She can't say. He says, I don't know how to make the thing. Finally he says, you are my friend from early life. Do you promise not to say to a single soul what I'll tell you? She says, I got a child. And if the army has to find him, they will kill him. I am going to put him in this box, close the box, have a hole on top, it must float. And I'm going to hand it over to the oceans. At least my child perhaps can live. He cannot live here. But please don't tell anyone. As soon as he goes, he makes the box. But he goes to tell the army. Because a lot of money involved. As he's walking to explain to them, Mufassirin write, he reaches the door of military headquarters. And he can't talk. He's making signs to explain a boy is born. Those people say, you're wasting our time. They hit him a little bit. And he goes. So as he walks, he's wondering, I can't talk. And he's saying, what? And as he says, what? The word comes out. He starts talking. So immediately he turns back and he goes again. A lot of money. As soon as he comes there, his mouth is shut again. And again he gets hiding. And on the third time when he starts walking, Allah Tabarakala makes his legs also lame. He can't even move. So he falls to the ground, this carpenter. And he says, he speaks to Allah and he says, I promise. And then suddenly he stands and then he says, there's something in that boy, and he just goes back to do his work. The mother comes, he doesn't say to the mother anything what happens. He gives the box and he's quiet. Musa alayhi salam is put in that box. And now the mother comes and she looks at that mighty ocean. It's like from a fire, from the stove into the fire. So Allah Tabarak Ta'ala says, فَإِذَا خِفْتِ عَلَيْهِ, when you will become scared, فَأَلْقِيهِ فِي الْيَمْ, throw him. وَلَا تَخَافِي وَلَا تَحْزَنِي, don't ever have any worry. This ummah was told, don't ever have worry about Islam. Islam is a living religion. How it will come up, and we're seeing it. إِنَّا رَادُّوهُ إِلَيْكِ وَجَاعِلُوهُ مِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. Allah Tabarak said, we are going to be doing. You don't have to worry. There is no American lobby, there is no Jewish lobby, there is no satanic lobby, there is no Dajjali lobby. One irada of Allah and everything fails. BBC was against it. CNN was against it. The world wanted to talk. At the same time as Erdogan was having his problem, another problem happened. In the land of France came a bikini issue. You have bikini and then you had the burqa with the kini. It became burkini. So that auntie, she put on that burqa and she went on the beach. The French are so hard on this issue. We went to reunion, we saw it. They shiver if they see you even trying to cover a little bit of your face. How they come and from where you see the whole military looking at you from that side. All over like they're jumping. So in France the woman was not wearing parda now. All she was covering her body. The government passed this decision that they will be fined 40 euros. You find anyone covering their body on the beach. Even the soldier and the police officer who's giving the fine. And the woman asked him, what are you fining me for? So he doesn't know what to say. He says, you are dressed immodestly. So as he said it, everyone is laughing. Because he doesn't know what to fine her for. Her face is not covered. That burkini made such a uprise in the non-Muslim world that the woman who designed the burkini wrote that 70% of my customers, let me tell you, is not the Muslims, is non-Muslims. They're wearing the burkini. Are you going to go find them? Suddenly they went quiet. They had protests. Who came out for the protest? Non-Muslim women. We want freedom to dress as we want. When the world said dress as you want means take out your clothes. The non-Muslim today is saying freedom to dress as we want to put on the clothes. The news went shut. Government went quiet. They realized they made such an error that you're going to take up the whole world against you. So they said, we want to have meetings with the Muslims now. We want to have discussions. We don't want to create problems. Everything going haywire in the world. One irada has fallen. Non-Muslims are entering. When that Syria problem happened, Bashar al-Assad was created to wipe out the entire Sham. He was sponsored left, right and center. Where America wanted to stop him. They said, you kill how many you want to in Syria. And whoever wants to run away to the lands of the Western world, let them go. They opened their hands at the beginning. Because they said when we took them from Sham and we put them in South America years ago, we destroyed that entire land. Everyone who entered South America, we made them practically into non-Muslim. Send them from Sham, we will make them all non-Muslim. But it was 100 years reaching, where they thought as it happened the first time, it will happen the second time. One friend, he said, I came from that area. He said, these people never understood what they're messing with. One Syrian woman will enter a supermarket. She got the pride of an Arab. In 5 minutes she will see another sister, non-Muslim. She will say, my sister, you dress like this. She's not shy. She will say, I'm not Muslim. She say, you don't believe in Allah. How can you not believe in Allah? She gives dawah there and there. Everyone is gathering around her looking. She gives them all dawah. And then she buys it and she goes out. He said, they never understood a Syrian woman is coming to your shores. They're going to change their entire land. Everything is going haywire. The burkini is coming alive in those lands because there are millions of Muslims entering. And they are making millions others into Muslims. Families are changing in the Western world. This one Turkey was the final kick. Just before the coup took place, the Erdogan government won a certain part of the votes, which allowed them to make these changes in the constitution of Mustafa Kemal's Turkey. When I was there, he was doing it so unique. I met one man, I asked him, what's this? That in the masjids, I'm not seeing Abu Bakr and Umar and Sahaba. I'm only seeing the Ottoman. So that person who I was speaking with was a man of knowledge. He said, you see, the government at the moment is so weak. And the military is so strong. that if the Erdogan government loudly has to say we want to bring alive here, they'll kill him tomorrow. So he said, we thought about this issue, how to bring the people back onto Sunnah. So we said if we have to use the word Sahaba, the military will remove us all. So he said, instead of Sahaba, we rather say that the grandfathers of you Turks were the Ottoman Empire. Your forefathers are the Ottoman leaders, you must be like them. So now everywhere you go, you say the Ottoman legacy. Be like the Ottoman, they had a turban, they had the kurta. They wouldn't mention Sahaba, they were so scared. They said, come back to the Ottoman. So just before this coup, one change they made in the constitution. Because no one there in Turkey knows how to read Quran. So they changed, they said that the language of the Ottoman was Arabic. The script. Mustafa Kamal changed it into Latin, like what our English. It was like how we write in Urdu, alif, ba, ta, sa. They used to write with the Arabic letters. And the government at that time said, we want to teach the people Quran. The military would have removed them. So he said, it's compulsory when you come to the final year, like how we have matric. You must know the script of the Ottoman, because that's your legacy. So when that law was passed in parliament, one person wrote to the military, and I read that letter. He said, oh military, wake up. Because with this one law of this man, in 10 years' time, the next generation of Turkey will know how to read Quran. He said, wake up. Because the military saw it happening, they made their final kick, that now get him out. Otherwise it's all gone. But one irada was from Allah. وَنُرِيدُ Musa alayhi salam is thrown in the waters. One irada comes. Allah Tabarakullah could have taken Musa alayhi salam anywhere with that box. He could have brought him here to South Africa also. But Allah Tabarakullah says to the box, you go straight to Firaun. Because I will show the whole world that when I make an irada, then in the hands of the lion also, but the lion cannot bite. Now as that box is moving, 100 chances they can miss that box. Allah Ta'ala makes no. Firaun's daughter, she carries a certain rash. The best of doctors are called to try to cure that rash. It's not working. One Hakim says that on a certain day, the water of this area of the beach is very good. On that certain time, where Firaun and his wife and the girl and all the top doctors are going out, they're not just there enjoying time on the waters, but they're waiting for that specific time to use that water for that rash. On that specific time, Allah has given the command that box will move past them. To show that not by chance they picked it up, I brought it in their hand. They couldn't miss the box. Now the box is brought. That's what's in this box. When they open that box, they see a shining face. As soon as that box is open, one man says, this is that boy. There were soothsayers around Firaun. He said it. This is that boy. Immediately when she say to Firaun, kill him. And the wife of Firaun says, I'm in love with this boy. And she holds him. Firaun cannot even utter one word. And he says, even if it's that boy, one boy against my entire military, what can one boy do? But he never understood he is fighting with one irada of Allah. One boy will destroy your entire kingdom. وَنُرِيدُ This is the Surah Al-Qasas. How Allah Tabaraka, where He took him into the palace of Firaun. That Firaun who Musa alayhi salam was going to destroy had to look after him. He had to pay for his breastfeeding. He had to pay for his clothing. He had to pay for his upbringing. Musa alayhi salam would see the palace in and out. Now and then he would smack Firaun because he's a small child. He would pull in his beard. They write every now and then Firaun wanted to kill him. One irada. No way. And he would not understand why. And the whole world, Shaitan, Dajjal, all their lobbies, how often they get together. How many, they call it Jewish lobbies, it's satanic lobbies. in the highest of places, with the most of wealth, most of computers, they put it on. They say, you went to study there, you went for this year, you went for that day, how many years of research? What is the way to destroy this Islam? They call that hypocrite, they call that hypocrite. They have certain people, one friend met one man. He asked him, he was dressed in kurta. So he made salam to him, he made walikumus salam. So then he's speaking, so the man said, no, I'm not a Muslim, I'm Jew. He said, you Jew, but you dress like this. He said, I'm doing an assignment. 10 years. He said, 10 years assignment, what's your assignment? His assignment is that how, this uprising is taking place in the Muslims. He says, but to understand what's happening, I have to go in. So he asked him, you know Arabic? He said, I studied in the Darul Room. He studied already. He knows more, he can be a mufti. He'll tell you, Shami said this and he said that. Masters they got in their lobbies, masters. They bring them all. And then Shaitan will scream and say, but what's happening? And say, وَنُرِيدُ one irada of Allah. That the whole world is now going to change. Everything is going haywire. But the unique thing of this ummah, the Quran speaks about uswa, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is called the model of mankind. Ibrahim alayhi salam was also called uswa for this ummah. And what was Ibrahim alayhi salam? Allah Ta'ala said, Inna Ibrahim kana ummatan. That remember, Ibrahim alayhi salam was one man, but he was an entire nation. What was unique of Ibrahim alayhi salam with this ummah? Ibrahim alayhi salam was born in the era of Namrud. Namrud was the first king of the Babylon Empire. Babylon Empire was the first empire to be established on what today they call Kabbalah. Magic. In that time it was called the knowledge of Harut and Marut. It was the first civilization, they say, the world ever saw, Babylon. Namrud was not supposed to be made king. He was brought in by the shaitani forces. Wherever Namrud's eye fell, he took over those lands. Because he had such miracle might. Because he had magic moving with him. His armies, wherever they went, they took over. In that time, Ibrahim a.s. was born. He challenged Namrud at the beginning. And later on, one Ibrahim was used to break the whole Namrud empire. And then Allah Ta'ala said, Kana ummatan. One man, he was a nation. But for this ummah, it was told that it started with Namrud, the beginning of the empire of magic. And it will end with this ummah in known and the era of the Dajjal. It will be that same Kabbalah, Babylon magic. It will be an era of computers and technology and science. It will be drugs and raves. One Ibrahim a.s. was sufficient and he broke that entire Namrud's empire. In this ummah also, it will be one individual of every town made to stand up. And he will be told, you are the Ibrahim of this era. In the past, it was needed that a Nabi could only do the job. To fight shaitan and the entire shaitani world was a Nabi needed. One Nabi would pass away, they would wait for the next Nabi to come. This ummah was given that honor, that Allah Ta'ala was going to create Ibrahims from me and you. And in this coming era of revolution, when a new Ibrahim and many Ibrahims are going to stand, and they're going to challenge the entire shaitani, Dajjali world, it will be our children who will be selected for the job. So who will it be? It will be that father who will say, oh Allah, I want my son to be selected. Sheikh Mahmoud Afandi, his father made dua after every salah. That, oh Allah, give me a son who will change the world. And that son was born. One Ibrahim. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam entered Medina Munawwara. The mother of Anas radiallahu anhu, she also thought that the Nabi of Allah needs strong people to look after him. She had a small child. She took him in front and said, oh Allah's Nabi, will you accept him for your khidmah? Anas radiallahu anhu says, I had the honor of making the khidmah for 10 years of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam after that. Why? Because my mother put me front. This ummah does not look for strong individuals to change the world. Allah has made the next Ibrahims will be the small children who are playing yo-yos today. They're going to be that Ibrahim. So as you allow in these days of Hajj has just finished, and we're seeing the revolution happening in the world, you yourselves make this dua, that oh Allah, in the next garden of Islam, where every new rose is being selected now, then from my house let one rose also be selected. And wallah, it happens. Don't ever look at how weak we are. Because when that irada happens from there, then one boy becomes that candle who the whole world can't blow out. Changes the world. And the world is changing. And when that 100-year period hits, then you say, wow, Allah, how life came back to the land. And it's all coming alive again. When Sahaba radiallahu anhu asked that the Khilafat will be broken, he said, who will ever establish the Khilafat again? Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Allah will just make it stand again. And it's just happening. The whole world is now seeing warriors being created. People just loving deen, masajid being established, people coming. You wonder at night when the rave is calling, the movies are calling, entertainment centers are calling. You say, where will people ever come for a bayan? You say, one Allah made a irada, and that irada, He'll bring the whole world to the Kaaba also. So the government will say, stop, we can't manage. The whole world say, we come. One irada and the whole world is changing. We're living in a revolution. Turkey was like a beginning. Kama bada'na awwala khalqin nu'idu. Allah got a system. You see, when you're small, you can't do much. Then you reach your heights. Then when you go down, Quran says, we take you back to the beginning. Nu'idu. So how you were a child at the beginning, you go back again, 0. And then from 0, that person becomes old, now he's like a small child, and then you will die, and then again you're taken up again. In the year after, you will be taken to your peak. But the system of Almighty Allah is like a return. That return journey is such, if you follow it, it will leave like the mind wandering. The Khilafat of Islam was always the Arab. It ended off the Banu Umayyah, then there was Banu Abbas, it was Arab. And then it went to the Turk, it became the Ottoman Empire. It was a long story how it went there. And for many years they ran it. Hundreds of years. And then the whole Khilafat was broken. And we always thought how the revival would be. And when we saw Allah making the revival, we saw it happening again from the Turk. Because where it ended on the Turk, He made them stand up first. And we see how they stood up. And from there it will now hit straight into the Arabs. And when the Arab will stand up, then the world will suddenly see America and Saudi Arabia, who for years and years were the best of friends, will start breaking. And as that break begins, then there will be the talks of war. And there will be talks of the price of the dollar and the real mustn't be remaining the same anymore, controlled. The Arabs will say, we want to break away from the dollar. The American government will say, we'll never allow it. And there'll be a lot of fear, and there'll be a lot of bombs, and a lot of things happening. And when you see that, then you must know we are in that era where this revolution is going to go one far. And then that irada of Allah will hit, and the whole world will stand up. And the world of kufr will come crumbling to the ground. And Allah Tabarak Ta'ala is making it. What we have read, the little what we read, it cannot be, not called convincing evidence. But what little but research a person can make into like the writings of mentioned, the scriptures of the past. But you can never trust it really. But it does give us a hope. So from that little bit that you can understand of what was mentioned to the Anbiya of the past, it seems it was mentioned to them in the final era of this world. There will be 4 empires that will rise. And it's a very long story. But in that 4 empires, the final empire according to understanding those scripts. You can't trust it 100%, but there is that. The final empire is shown as America. The final beast that will rise. So after that beast, there's only 4. The other 3, one was Russia, one was Germany, one was England. They had their days and they went down. And the 4th one was the rise of the mighty United States, America in that land. 4 beasts. The world saw those 4 beasts. So when this final beast now starts coming down, meaning falling, then you must know now that now it's the revival of Islam in the whole world. And we're seeing that fall starting. So how much that final beast will kick, he'll give a few more kicks. But his day of Qurbani is also coming. And Islam is coming up. May Allah Tabarakala make it, who knows, maybe this eye will see it. But make this desire. Sahaba radiallahu anh had this word on their tongue. The Sahabi Abu Huraira radiallahu anh most likely said to his son, he said, if I do not meet Al-Mahdi, but you meet him, then you give him the salams of Abu Huraira radiallahu anh and the salams of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Perhaps we today have to tell our child that, oh my son, if I do not see Al-Mahdi, then you give him my salams, because most likely you will definitely see him. May Allah Tabaraka make us all that we stand up. We say, oh Allah, I'm also ready. And my child is ready, and my wife is ready, and my daughter is ready. But for that day we make this, I make them waqf, oh Allah, for your deen. I hand them over. And now you use them as you want. And wallah, if you find that flower of Islam in our own houses, we'll be the happiest of the happy. May Allah Tabarakala make our eyes and our hearts cool that we see the rise of the flags of Islam. Wa akhiru da'wana.